And next week we'll cover where we get our hope. And the third week we're going to cover a class on life with no hope. And I know you guys know some people out there that are in that situation. They've either fallen away from the church or they've never been introduced or exposed to the gospel and haven't made good choices in their life. So we're going to talk about that. And the final week we're going to talk about the hope that we have in living our lives, knowing that the grace that God has provided for us through the sacrifice of His Son and the resurrection, that's where we get our hope, is through the resurrection. So I encourage everybody this morning, you can look, we got Vacation Bible School, we're headed into that, and I hope we pray and have a good, successful Vacation Bible School. And we use it here at the church as an outreach to encourage families to start coming and bringing their children. And so sometimes this can be a whole bunch of bother, but it's worth it, because if we can reach out into the community and we can bring in those lost souls, friendship evangelism still works, and that's how we try to address that, to reach out into the community. So be praying for our Vacation Bible School. Let's have a word of prayer before we begin. Gracious Father, we come before you now so thankful for this day. We're thankful for the good night's rest that we've had, and we pray that you will be with us and that we will do everything we can to absorb the lessons that we have been taught here today at Ashville Road, and that we will be a good living example to everyone we come in contact with, and that we will be an encouragement to those that need encouragement. We pray, Father, that you will be with us during this Bible class hour, for this is our prayer in Jesus' name, and amen. So this morning we're going to talk about basically about hope. But in 1 Corinthians 13th chapter, verse 13, faith, hope, and love are what composes a Christian character. And Richard did a series of lessons on faith, and Jim did one on love and happiness. And I'm not sure exactly why it's listed faith, hope, and love, because faith and love will give you the hope, and that's what we're going to be dealing with. So Webster defines two ways. He defines hope, and the one is a noun. It says a feeling of expectation and desire for a certain thing to happen. And the other definition that he gives is used as a verb, and it says want something to happen or to be the case. Let me go ahead and say this before I begin. If I'm looking at my notes here and I've become bewildered, or I'm not sure I know how to read French, and that's the craziest. Look, I was in a hurry when I wrote this, and so some of my writing is not very good. So the Bible says basically what hope is. It's a reassurance that we can put our faith in the knowledge that God has presented with us through this word of this Bible right here, His Word, an avenue that we can make it home to heaven. And that's what this life is all about. You know, we can hope about all kinds of things. There's hope that we have control of and hope that we don't have control of. And the hope we have control of is basically we can go in and we can do the things that we need to do. And the hope we don't have control of is like, well, I hope that tornado doesn't hit my house, or I hope that it rains soon, you know. Those things, yeah, that's right. Those things are out of our hands, out of our control. But the things that we can do is what God has laid out in this book. The only way to do that is for us to study this book to the point where we know what we're supposed to do. And so we all want to hope to what? Go to heaven. That's what this life's all about. You can say, well, I hope I make $1 million. Well, that's not going to get you into heaven. And it's a sort of a falsehood, and it can become like an idol to us if we're not careful, in that if money becomes that controlling thing in our lives instead of letting this book guide our lives down the pathways that God wants us to do. It doesn't mean we have to do it, but we're not going to be pleasing to Him. Jesus said, if you love me, to do what? Keep my commandments. That's right. And so It's just that basically simple. And so in this book, it's like a recipe. And so if you're going to make a cake, and the recipe says, put this much flour and 3 eggs and this much sugar and this much vanilla or whatever the recipe calls for, if you do it like that says, that recipe, cook it the right time at the right temperature, you're going to end up with a cake. But you leave the eggs out, and guess what you're going to end up with? It's going to be a mess, whatever it is. I don't know what it'll look like, but it ain't going to look like a cake. And so what I'm trying to say is that when the recipe is here in this book, the plan for us to make it home, to get to heaven, we've got to do everything that's in here. And that's what bothers me about when you talk to somebody about where they are spiritually, or you're trying to get them to understand the plan of salvation that God has in there, and they want to introduce, let's just say, what do they call it? The prayer. That they say you got to pray this prayer. Is what? A sinner's prayer. You got to pray this sinner's prayer. And you're thinking, where does that come from? And they say, well, or the instrumental music is another thing. And they come in there and they say, well, we just thought it enhanced. That's not what God said. So now Revelation, it talks about adding to or taking away from that word, this word right here. And if we do that, then it says we're going to be guilty of the plagues that are in this book. In other words, your happiness is not going to be rewarded and be a life forever and ever and ever and ever in heaven. So we have to be careful that we do. And this book is also like a road map. You know, if I wanted to go to Athens, Georgia, I'd probably just punch it in my phone and it'd show up. Back in the day, you'd get a map and you'd fold that thing out. And if it says you go out here on I-20 and you go so far and you turn to the right and then you turn to the left, back to the right, you'll be in Athens, Georgia. If you don't do exactly what that thing says, guess where you're going to be? Not Athens, Georgia. You're going to be somewhere else. So if this book is considered to be like a road map, that we can take the instructions that are in it and apply them to our lives and do what this book says, then we're going to make it where we want to go, and that is to make it to heaven. Now, that doesn't mean between here and there that we're not going to have hardships. We're not going to have difficulties in our lives. Some people face financial hardships, and that's one that really, because what is it? We're in control of that. So if I've tried to teach my children, and I pray that I've done a good job in this area, is that in order for us to get ahead in this life, somebody has to make the sacrifice. You're not going to wake up one morning, go out there, and there's going to be $1 million sitting in your mailbox. That's not reality. You can't put your faith, your hope, and your dreams in that. That's not a reality. So somebody has to get up and go to work and do their job. And then the other side of it is we have to be good stewards. So if you find yourself in a financial hardship and you're working all these hours and you're still not working out, you need to back up, step out of the picture, formulate you a plan, and stick to that plan. And that's how you'll be successful and to reach your goal. And so the other thing is, like, as we get older, this body starts deteriorating, and we're going to experience some pain. If you haven't done it yet, you might as well get used to it, because it's a fact of life. So when you wake up one morning and you're thinking, man, I didn't have that pain yesterday, and if it's forever and ever chronic bad pain that you're going to be dealing with, where do you find the hope in that? Where do you find the hope? Let's look at, somebody get Romans, the 8th chapter, verse 18. Let's read that together. Romans 8:18. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that shall be revealed in us. So what is that saying to us? The sufferings that we're going through right now are not worth the glory that we're going to receive at the end of this life. In Revelations, I think it's 21 and 4. Revelations 21 and 4 said that we do what we're supposed to do in this lifetime, that we're headed to a time and forever and ever live with God, where there will be no more pain, no more sorrow, no more heartache, no more tears, and no more death. And I'll be honest with you, as that time gets more and more and the pain gets more and more, you get weary, you get tired, and sometimes you just want to say, what in the world am I here for? What am I here for? So I can hurt every day? Surely that's not God's plan. But this verse says right here in Romans, is the suffering that we're doing right now is going to go away, according to Revelation 21:4. The pain, the sorrow, the heartache, the tears, and the death, all that's going to be gone. And we'll live with God in heaven forever and ever. See, that has to be our hope. And how do we achieve that? Our hope is through the resurrection, that we understand that God's Son, Jesus, came and died. He lived on this earth and he died a horrible death. We talk about suffering. You get up and your legs might hurt, your knee might hurt, your back. That's nothing compared to what Jesus did. The suffering he did was stuff I don't know that we could comprehend or stuff we could endure. So we can't compare what Jesus did for us to what our daily struggles are in this life. Some of those struggles are our own fault. Some of those struggles are out of our control. These bodies are going to wear out. Your knees are going to wake up one morning and your knees are going to hurt you. And there's a lot of hope in the medical research and the stuff they can do for people now compared to what they could a few years ago, especially dealing with heart issues, stuff like that. But I heard on the radio the other day that they have this for people who are suffering with Alzheimer's disease. And one day you wake up and you can't remember who you are. You can't remember your family. You can't remember anything. And it's sad. It terrifies me to think one day that could happen, But they've got medicine for it now, and they're reporting that in this medicine, the hope is, and the medicine has proven, that when they take this medicine for a period of time, not only can you're going to retain your memory, these people are leaving the nursing home, and they're going back to their normal, they go back to work. See, that's a hope for those people who are suffering with that disease. Another thing that terrifies me is cancer. And my mama passed away from cancer, and that was 1989. I miss her every day. I'll just be honest with you. But I know that at the end of life's ways, I'll be able to see my mama again. So that's one of the reasons that give us hope that we need to do what we need to do so that we can receive the reward of being reunited with people who have gone on. I remember one time when June and I were dating, and that was a day or two ago, but there was a family that lived down the road. 3 houses down from where June's parents lived was a couple that lived there with the little girl. And the little girl was about 4 years old, and he was a deputy sheriff with Jefferson County, and I'm not sure what his wife did, but anyway, they come to find out that the little girl had cancer. And she went through all the process that they had available back then, and eventually the little girl got so bad that she did pass away. But what I want to tell you is that little girl, even at 4 years old, was able to call her mom and daddy and talk to them before she passed away. And she let them know, she said, as a child, I know where I'm headed. And if you guys want to see me again, then you've got to do what you're supposed to do here so that you can receive the award and we'll be reunited. Now, if she can understand that at 4 years old, surely at our age, whatever it is, we have the mental capability to understand that that's what the Bible teaches, that we're going to receive the reward by doing what we're told to do in there. So it's just that simple. And I know we have folks that come to church every Sunday and never been baptized. Never been baptized. I want to encourage you this year to be a doer and not a pewer. I don't want people to come and sit down in this church and feel content and satisfied that you're doing everything you can to promote the church. If nothing else, make sure that you come as often as you can because of the encouragement you are to somebody else. You might not think you are, but I promise you, you are. Even these little youngsters, when they're here, and they'll say something to you. I always, when I taught the class back there for the teenage group, I always encourage those kids to be sure to speak to somebody, elderly person. That will make their day. And it helps the youngsters to come out of their shell and to be able to express how they feel to everybody else, because that's going to be important. In 1 Peter 3rd chapter, verse 15, the Bible says to be prepared to give an answer of what? Of the hope that's in us. Now, you think one day you're going to wake up? It's not going to be like if you have this false idea about, I'm going to wake up and there's going to be $1 million in my mailbox. Well, you're not going to wake up one day and have all the knowledge that's in this book. So in other words, you're going to have to put forth some effort in order for us to be prepared of the hope that's in us. So what I try to get those kids to do is to understand they can be an encouragement to somebody just by saying, how you doing? You having a good day? Hopefully you plant that seed at that age, it'll carry it through the rest of their lives. And so we want to continue to press on and do everything we can to glorify God and to bring everybody that we come in contact with with a closer relationship, and we can do that through encouragement. And so Jim talked the other day about when somebody was broke down on the side of the road, it would be good to stop and help them. We have an example of that in the Good Samaritan, and the things that he went out of his way to do that wasn't his job. He just felt it necessary to do. And the beauty of it is that God felt necessary to put it in his word. So we know it's important. It's important for us to follow that example and do as best we can. Now, I'll be honest with you. I used to stop all the time and help people on the side of the road, and I've become a little bit leery of it because of the meanness that's out there. And that's a shame that I have to feel that way. I remember one time I was coming home. It was Thanksgiving, and if you don't know, at a zip code where I work at, that doesn't mean anything. Thanksgiving's just another day. When you work in the maintenance department, that's just another day. So I was coming home, and the interstate wasn't open yet over here, I-20. So we all had to come through Rose Hill, and we come down that road, and they had just put this new dirt on the side of the road. So I was coming down through there, and there was a car broke down, and there was a woman that got out, an elderly woman got out of the car, and she was walking down the road, and it was raining. It was bad raining. And so I thought, hey, you're not going to pass this woman up and let her walk in the rain. So I pull over and I stop. I see what she needed. She explained to me that her husband had a heart attack, and not then, but he had recently had a heart attack. The car had broke down. She needed some help. And so she got in the car, and we got her a phone. And when I pulled back in to let that woman get back in her car, I pulled off the road, and that dirt was about this thick, but it was like mush. When my car got in that was it. I was stuck, so now I needed a wrecker. Well, in the process of taking that woman where we were going, as we got to talking, and she asked about family, and offered us one thing and another. And I thought it was kind of weird when she asked about my address. It wasn't specifically, she said, where do you live? And I'd say, I live in Leeds. No, she wanted the address. And I thought, that's kind of weird. Nowadays, I wouldn't dare do that. If somebody asks you for your Social Security number or something, you're thinking, no, your bank account. No, we're not going to do that. But anyway, this is back in the day before all this foolishness about people stealing your identity came about. And so I gave her the address. I didn't think nothing else about it. I thought we were just making conversation. So anyway, I let her out, and the wrecker shows up, and the guy walked over. It's still raining, and he walked over in the rain. He said, are you the fellow that helped this lady? And I said, yep. I really didn't have the money to pay $150 for no record bill, So he said, well, I'll pull you out first. And I said, okay. He said, I'm not going to charge you for it. He said, because out of the kindness of your heart, you stopped to help this lady. And that was my reward. But about 3 weeks later, he got her out, and he hauled her down here to Murray's garage, and they got her cargo. About 3 weeks later, it's right there about Christmas time, we went out to the mailbox, and there were packages in there for each one of my children. That woman had taken the time in an effort to thank me for what I had stopped and helped her in her situation. She sent presents to each one of my children. And I thought, there's a lesson in that. If I just drove on by, we wouldn't have received that reward. But the encouragement that I get by helping that person enables me to go on and continue to do that. So if we we do our best to reach out and encourage those people that we have a contact with. But the secret to it is to be prepared. If you find a person, and it might not be that they're broke down on the side of the road, but they have a need in their life, and that's for you to explain to them the hope that's in you. Are you prepared to do that? You see, the Bible talks about a time when people should be able to, instead of drinking milk, they ought to be able to eat meat. In other words, the lessons that are in here, we don't need to have somebody explain. We ought to be the one doing the explaining. We have surely matured to a level. And so the more you do it, the better you're going to be, the more confident you're going to be, and the better you'll be prepared to enrich somebody else's life. So I want to make it a goal as soon as you possibly can. It's not that you have to memorize word for word, but at least know the plan of salvation and how to explain to a person so they can get on the right track. Like I said, we've got people, even here at Ashville Road, that come and they'll worship. They've never been baptized. They just come to worship. And in their mind, if somebody was to walk up to them and ask them, where do you go to church? And they say, we go to Ashville Road. They do. They come here. But does that make them a member of the church? No. You gotta do what the recipe says in order for you to end up with your cake. What are you going to end up with the reward? You've got to do what this book says for us to do. So when people are out there, you know, Matthew the 7th chapter, verse 21. I better read that. Matthew. That isn't the verse I thought it was. I want to refer back to a verse that says, straight and narrow is the way, and few are going to make it. Because there's a lot of people, they think all they got to do is come and sit in the pew and get up and leave. And that's not in and of itself, because there's more to it than that. And there's different levels of participating in the work. And so I want to encourage everybody to do everything they can to make this church the best church that we can. And it's going to take work. It's going to take work. And if we've graduated in our lives to a level to where we think we can just kick back and not do anything, there is always something that we can do. It might just be you pick up the phone and make a phone call. We all can do that. Send a card. Yeah, we pretty much all do that. We can all go make visits. Every one of us on a different level. Our time schedule. I hope what it is, our hope is that you have a desire to want to reach out and encourage those people. One of the places that we need a lot of work done on is our sick and those people who are experiencing the loss of a loved one. You know, we can reach out to those people, and it's difficult because really the reality of it is, if you're just getting started into that process, you're saying, I really just don't know what to say. You can't go to somebody and try to comfort them about a death in their family and want to talk about football, you know? It's just not the time or the place. So, but sometimes you don't have to say anything. I remember a story about a preacher, and he was a young man. He had a congregation, a small congregation, and he did an adequate job. But during that process, he had a member right there, family, and the daddy died. And he got ready, and he went over there to try to comfort the family. He didn't have a clue of what to say. And he didn't. He didn't say anything. He was just there. 5 years later, he left. 10 years later, they had a reunion. And he came back for the reunion. And he saw that family there, and he went because he had matured. And he grew into an area where he knew what he needed to say, or thought he knew what he needed to say. And he went and apologized to him. He said, because I came, but I didn't say anything. And that the mother, the wife of that man who had passed away, she told him, you did exactly what I needed for you to do, just to be there. You know, it's not necessarily that we go somebody and we have all the right words to say, because it's an awkward position we find ourselves in when we are in that situation. But it's ours to do. It's ours to do. You don't have to do it because you're obligated. You ought to do it because you want to. You want to reach out and show that person that you love them, you care about them, and you want to help them through that difficult time, because we're all going to be faced with it. You know, the Bible says that man is appointed once to die. And we all understand that. We've had goldfish, and the goldfish dies, or a puppy. You know, you live long enough, and mom and daddy are going to die. Maybe, I don't know, maybe your wife or your husband, or maybe one of your children. You just don't know. We can put our hands around that. We understand the goldfish die and the puppy dies. It's harder as that graduates. Now you're talking about a human being, a family member, and it's difficult for us to deal with, but we can learn to accept it. And at first it stings us so hard that it paralyzes us. It paralyzes us. And we don't know what to do, which way to go. That's why it's important for other people to reach out to help comfort you and get you through that difficult time. But the other part of that verse says, it's appointed once for man to die, and then comes what? Then comes the judgment. So if we know that prior to the time of that death, then what do we need to do? We need to get prepared for the judgment. And how we do that is exactly what we're doing here this morning. We're here, and we're going to worship God. We're going to encourage one another, and we're going to get ourselves built up, better prepared to face that time. Because, folks, I got news for you. It's coming. The day is coming when there's no longer going to be air going in and out of these nostrils, no oxygen. And that's when you're going to be gone from this life. But it's not the end. That's the end of this phase of our life. But the new life that's headed for us, if we do what we're supposed to do, is one that God says that He will reward us with if we've done what we're supposed to do. So that's the challenge in being a Christian and doing what we're supposed to do to help get us all to heaven. Can you do it as an individual? If you were on an island all by yourself, could you make it? Could you make it to heaven? You think? How could you be baptized? How could you be baptized? We all need each other. But I'm going to tell you this. There's people out here that have gone through the steps of becoming a Christian, and now they're living over here under the bridge. And they have as good a chance to make it to heaven as every one of us. So it's not about the money. If we create that, we make money that our goal, that we think we're going to be able to buy our way into heaven, we're fooling ourselves. Money has become an idol for us. We have to be real careful about that. Because it's good to be able to make a living and to live comfortably. But we can't neglect. And the reason that this is something that's so important to me in the unit that I work with at SIPCO, 7 days a week is a normal. It's a normal. Now, I've got to the point where I don't have to do 7 days a week. So for those youngsters, it's horrible. I feel so sorry for them. And Mason's going through that experience right now, 7 days every week. I had a guy call me last year at Thanksgiving. Now, SIPCO requires you to take 2 weeks of vacation. And his mindset was that if there's work available, I'm going to be here. It was Thanksgiving, and he was mad because they were going to make him take his 2 weeks of vacation. He'd been off 6 days the whole year. Money had become a replacement for what he should be doing, having God in that place. He worshiped that money. And the sad part about that is the divorce rate in my unit runs about 80%. And you can understand why. If you're not spending time with your family, quality time, time that you should be bringing them to church and doing those things as a parent. You know, the Bible tells us to train our children in the way they should go. And when they're old, they won't depart from it. And I know there's people here, and their hope is, even though that their children have left the church, the Bible says when they are old, or in other words, when they mature, they will not depart from it. Their hope is when they pillow their heads every night, the tears in their eyes are hoping that before they pass, they will see their children return back to the church. It doesn't always work that way because it's an individual thing. If that child has developed his life outside of the church so strongly that they don't have the time or the desire to come to church. It's a terrible, terrible thing for a parent to deal with when you have to know that your child's being unfaithful. So, but there's hope for them, because that verse says, when they are old, they will not depart from it. That doesn't mean between point A and point B there won't be a period of time when they're not what they're supposed to be. They will depart from it. But hopefully they will return and do what they need to do to get back on the right path. I've done a lot of talking this morning. Does anybody have anything that they need to contribute to, want to ask, want to say? Seven 13. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, you're exactly right. It says, enter ye in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth unto destruction, and many therein be which go into to go in thereat. Because straight is the gate, narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. So in order for us to make it to heaven, we have to have a desire to want to do that. It has to be our intention. It's our hope that we can live our lives to that point. But some people fool themselves into thinking, they make an excuse, and they say, well, I don't really have to do that. No, I'm afraid that you do. I'm afraid that you do. Because this is God's word. This is his plan. And what happens is when man substitute what God says to do with something that they think makes things better, or this is easier to do, or this is just what I think. Who in their world could have come up with the plan of salvation that if you blow yourself up over here, when you get to heaven, you're going to have 72 virgins? For a million years, I could never imagine who. I know who did it, Ayatollah Khomeini, or whatever his name was. He changed. Of course, they didn't believe what God said anyway, but he changed what their book was. And there's a lot of times people will blatantly just change the words that are in this book to satisfy something, make it easier for themselves. Most of the time, it revolves around greed and money. So those people will also, because as being a spiritual leader, if they have led purposely somebody down the wrong path, I believe the reward's not going to be in heaven. It's just not. Yes, sir.
Kevin, you remember when we went to Ukraine?
Yes, sir.
We saw all those people that had no hope.
Yes.
But Ashville, where you guys are fine.
Yes.
Where you going? I'm going to forever.
Yeah.
That's all.
Right. Yeah, Ray's talking about when we went to the Ukraine, we met several people over there. In fact, the majority of the populace over there believe that when you're dead all over, just like Rover, and that there wasn't a spiritual side to your life. It was an eye-opening experience for me, but we had to endure some struggles and hardships like you always do on a trip like that. We were over there for 3 weeks, and we met a lot of people. And hopefully we influenced some of those people. Because the Christian faith was relatively new in Russia. But I remember we met a woman out in the village, and her name was Babushka, which means grandmother. I don't know what her real name was, but everybody called her Babushka. And the guy that was with us led the series of lessons in that village that morning. And afterwards she came to us and she told us, she said, Babushka can remember when this was taught, and then the government took all our Bibles away, and they removed the hope for the whole population of everybody over there. And now we were able to go in over there and plant that seed, and hopefully it's continuing to germinate and grow over there. But yeah, you're right. It's almost a culture shock when you go and you meet a whole group of people, and there's no hope in them at all. You know what the life expectancy of a Russian man is? 54 years old, because of the hardship of their lives. I wish everybody, when they graduated high school, could go on a mission trip. Now, I'm not talking about go to Hawaii on a mission trip. I'm talking about go someplace where the need is tremendous. It's an eye-opening experience that will change your way of looking at life and what we've got here in the United States of America. And a lot of people here take it for granted, and they just want more and more and more and more. If you were able to go and experience what we saw when we were over there, I promise you would come back. And Ray can verify. And guys, men and women have been on trips when they go to a foreign country like that. When you get back to the United States, you want to just kiss the ground. I'm just to be honest with you. You're so happy to be home and the freedoms that we've got and everything that we've got here. And God has blessed this country tremendously. And in the back of my mind, I thank God for being patient, for one thing. I know God's ways are not our ways. I don't know how long He's going to be patient. When we, as United States of America, richest country in the world, supposed to be a Christian nation, and then we turn around and we abort all these children. It's horrible. It is horrible. We've got states now that are getting in the process of rebuking that law about the abortion. And some of the people want to run around. I saw a sign the other day. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. It's a big riot going on. Not a riot, but a demonstration. They had a march. They were going up in Washington. They had a banner about here to that wall over there. You know what it said on that banner? God bless abortion. Can you imagine that? God bless abortion. And in my mind, I want to think, oh, man, these people get struck by lightning. It wouldn't have surprised me a bit. God's a lot more patient about this situation than I would be. As a parent over a child, if I had a child and I said, this is the rules and we're not going to do this, and they did it and they continued to do it, I would become very irritated about it, and I would put a stop to it. So in that regard, God has been very patient with us, and we need to reevaluate where we are about this thing. It's easy to say, because if you're prepared to go, then it's just a matter of waiting or doing what you can do during the time that you've got left. But the hardship is all those people that are not prepared to go. That's what we need to be looking at, is to get them ready to go. So when they pass from this earth, God can end this thing just right now, and that would be okay. It'd have to be. If we've done what we're supposed to do, I mean, there's always going to be somebody you said, man, I wish I could have reached out to that person. I wish I could have taught that person. But that's our job to do. And we become complacent because we're ready to go. And if they're not ready to go, that might be on them. But the reality of it is, it's going to be on us if we're supposed to, done what we can. If you ever had an opportunity to read a book, I can't remember the author, the guy's name, but it's called Shovel and a Muscle, or Muscle and a Shovel? Muscle and a Shovel, that's it. It's a good book. It's about a guy he wasn't relentless. He wasn't pile driving this guy, but he went through the process of showing this guy the right way compared to where this guy was. And eventually he was able to reach that man. He planted that seed, and it started to germinate and grow. And by the time of the end of the book, the man was hunting for the church building so that he could go get baptized and start down that pathway. Now, the guy who became baptized, he's a preacher. He's a gospel preacher. And he goes all over the country telling his story about how this man was able to reach out to him in a kind and gentle way. You can't go out there with a big hammer in your hand and expect people to react in a positive way if you're trying to teach them. It just doesn't work. Friendship evangelism is what it's all about. And that's the basis of that book that guy wrote about his experience in becoming a Christian. But somebody had to put forth the effort, and that's our job. Back to 1 Peter 3rd chapter, verse 15. Be prepared to give an answer of the hope that lies within you. And how we do that? We open this book and we study it for ourselves. We come to church, we get enriched and we get encouraged, and we're able to go out there better prepared to give an answer of the hope that's in us. Does that make it easy? No. That doesn't make it easy. That's your job, though. That's what we're supposed to do. As Christians, we're to reach out, plant that seed, and bring souls back into this building, not for our glory, not for our glory. But if God this afternoon, right now, immediately said, I've had enough, this is it. In our minds, we're going to be wishing, I wish I'd have had time to reach out to that person or mention that, bring this Bible verse to that person, maybe help change their life. I don't want us to walk away at the end of the time and say, man, I wish I'd have done this or no, go ahead and get it done. That's what we need to be doing. I see our time's almost up. Has anybody got anything else they'd like to contribute this morning? Bill?
Kevin, I was sitting here thinking about, Jesus, when he was teaching, the Jews tried to tear him down,
Yes.
in every way, form, and fashion to find a crucified. But
Right.
he never wavered from the truth.
Right.
He always, and a lot of it, was negative. And, I think we've gotten away from some of our negative preaching. A lot of people don't like that.
Right.
Okay? And, we're supposed to be setting an example.
Right.
We're supposed to live like Christ. Are we truly, as Christians, living like him today?
Right.
And, I think, people looking at us.
That's right.
And they say, well, these Church of Christ people, they used to be reverence to God. They used to obey his word to the, right to the fullest. And they didn't go out here and look like the world, immodest apparel.
Right.
And, and now we're allowing that, into the church. And, have we lost respect and reverence for our Lord?
I don't think it's one day somebody wakes up and they said, I'm going to be disrespectful in this regard, but it just creeps in like things always do, and we gradually learn to accept it, and it doesn't make it right. And you're right. We probably need to have more teaching and more sermons on heaven, how to get there, and what it's going to be like. And we also need to have the other side of that coin. We need to have lessons on hell and what it's going to be like. Yes, sir.
Let me say one more thing.
Yes.
I read about this 22-year-old young man, 22 steps to the electric chair, a deaf ear. I just want to read some of this, what's wrong with our society and us as Christians today. We begin early to give a child everything he wants. 2, we do anything for him, and he will become as expert at shifting the responsibility to other people. And let him do as he pleases, and he will want the world to grant him the same privilege.
You're right.
Around what, those past 10, 5, 10, 15 years.
Right. You got a handout society. Everything's
This kid here, this is a man that's going to the electric chair, written 22 steps. Said just one more. He said, let him know that cheating a little or telling a little white lie
right.
is all right if you don't get caught. And
No.
the other thing he's saying, avoid using the word sin or wrong. You might give him a guilty conscience. Does that sound like us as Christians today?
It should not. It should not. It should not sound like us.
Let's don't put a blind eye out there.
I know.
Let's look around, and think about it.
Yeah, we've all got some work to do. So I appreciate comments this morning, and look forward. Next week we'll talk about where our hope comes from. Thank you.